gentlemen, and any youngsters who may be in the audience. This is Fred Schaus, and I'm the coach of the Los Angeles Lakers of the National Basketball Association. In a few minutes at fall, we're going to bring you some of the highlights of our 1964-65 season. We'll show you a little bit of the action which led to the Lakers' third Western Division championship in their 5 years in Los Angeles. We'll bring you some action material on some of the outstanding players in the NBA, including, naturally, some of the fine players whose home court is the beautiful Los Angeles Memorial Sports Arena, the Lakers themselves. We're also going to try to show you a few of the inside points concerning the greatest spectator sport of them all, to perhaps help you enjoy the next NBA game which you see. (1964-65) was a season of mixed emotions for the Lakers and their official family. It was a season in which one of our superstars had his finest season and lived up to every superlative that has ever been applied to him. And it was a season in which one of our superstars was injured and couldn't participate in the playoffs. Injuries are a part of basketball. They are actually a part of any sport. But there is no doubt that the fractured kneecap which kept Elgin Baylor out of the playoffs was one of the most disappointing incidents of the season to all the Lakers. However, the playoffs did do one thing. They gave Jerry West a chance to prove beyond any shadow of doubt that he truly belongs with the all-time greats of basketball. His efforts during the Baltimore and Boston playoffs have to rank as one of the greatest sustained performances in the entire history of athletics. But let's not forget that basketball is still a five-man game, and the Lakers are fortunate enough to be blessed with a group of fine young ball players, hustling, hard-working boys who've given the fans of Los Angeles many great thrills over the past 5 years. Now, this is Rudy LaRusso, a fine and steady ball player and a corner man that has been with the Lakers 7 years now and has been a fine complement to Elgin Baylor out of the corners. Here you see his value to the ball club of muscling underneath the basket for an offensive rebound basket. He's a great sacrifice ball player and does a real fine job here on the board. He's one of the better rebounders at 6'7.5" in the league. And a fine outside jump shooter, certainly good enough to keep the defense honest at all times. This is Leroy Ellis, the ball player that came into his own during the 64-65 season, particularly late in the year and also through the playoffs after Elgin Baylor was injured. Leroy at 6'10" is probably one of the fastest men in the NBA, as shown here, getting out in front of the pack, taking the pass from Baylor. Here he takes a nice pass from Walt Hazzard out front and turns in. A real good rebounder, a fine shooter, and a ball player that should become perhaps an all-pro of the future. Ellis has been working hard for the past 2 or 3 years in the off-season on his offensive moves, his fakes and drives to the basket, and also his defense. Speaking of defense, here's another fine center, starting his 4th year with the Lakers, Gene Wiley from the University of Wichita, who is also 6'10". You can see here his value to the basketball team with his defense, his rebounding, and getting the first pass out. He has developed tremendously in this regard, as you'll notice here, getting that first pass out to start a fast break. And he's developed into a very adequate shooter, hitting nearly 50% from the field. Our other center was Darrell Imhoff, who, as you see, rebounding here and getting the pass out to start our break. A ball player that we picked up from the Detroit Pistons a year ago, and he's done a fine job. He was one of the great Cal teams that won the national championship and has been well schooled in defense and defensive rebounding. Here is a tremendous pass, and he makes the tallest guard and has done a fine job defensively. He generally draws the defensive assignments on men like Oscar Robertson and Sam Jones. Jimmy King is bringing up the basketball. Here is another ball player that has come on into his own. One of the fastest guards perhaps in the NBA, and a fine ball handler and passer. Notice here with a beautiful behind the back a la Kuzi move to the basket. Jimmy has real large hands and jumps well. He's a good rebounder for his size at 6'2". And as I say, with the big hands, he's able to control that ball and get off a lot of variety of shots. Walt Hazzard, who was in his rookie year during the 64-65 season, came on late in the year and played particularly good ball against the Boston Celtics. He is probably one of the surest dribblers and ball handlers in the league, and against Boston, the one man that we had was able to penetrate that defense with his dribble and drive and then lay the ball off to other teammates for good shots. But Walt can shoot, too, and does a good job of driving, particularly in and around and over the big men. Probably the greatest asset the Los Angeles Lakers have is a fine 1-2 offensive punch, perhaps the greatest of all time, in Elgin Baylor and Jerry West. Elgin at 6'5" out of the corner, Jerry at 6'3" in the backcourt. They give us great scoring outside, great scoring inside, and they work so well together. They've led the ball club during the past 5 years in scoring and also in assists. They're a great duo working together, helping each other get their openings, setting screens and picks for each other. Baylor and West. One of the great improvements over previous years, when Elgin Baylor was handicapped greatly by calcium deposits in the tendon of both knees, is the fact that he's been able to rebound and come off the defensive boards running with and to initiate and to start our fast break. He's also been able to go harder and stronger on the boards, particularly on the offensive end, whether he's second to none as far as second effort on any follow-up and twisting, driving shots. I think that Elgin has perhaps as good a control of his body weight in the air as any basketball player I've ever seen. He has tremendous fingertip control in and around that basket, which enables him to come up with the great shots and the great passes. He is probably one of the better passers in the league. And at 6'5", a man that can dribble and handle the ball, it makes it a tremendous asset and is a valuable weapon for us against a full-court press, something that we missed badly in the Boston series during the playoffs. I felt last year, during the 1964-65 season, that Elgin Baylor played his most consistent defense. But still, where his valuable asset is when he's coming down on that break, leading the break, coming off the defensive boards, which enable us to get our guards out ahead. The other half of the 1-2 punch, Jerry West shooting the foul in this scene. Last year, Jerry had the greatest NBA season a little man has ever had. Second in league scoring. Fifth in free throw percentage. Fourth in assists. And fourth in field goal percentage. Around the league, among the NBA players and the coaches, too, and all the writers and the press and radio that covered the Lakers, they felt that Jerry West developed into the greatest clutch shooter that the game has had. Time and again, when the game came down to the wire and we needed that big basket, it was always Jerry that came up with the big play. And certainly through the Baltimore and Boston series, he was fantastic when he averaged over 43 points for the entire 11 ball games of both series. Another big and valuable asset is the quickness of Jerry's hands and his defensive ability. Many times he will be placed on the top scoring guard, even though he is our big offensive threat outside. He's a consistent shooter, but he's also a fine streak shooter. As you'll see, when he gets that hot hand, he's almost impossible to stop. Speed, I think, is a keynote of NBA basketball, and I think many of the fans oftentimes overlook that fact because the men are so big, but these big men really move well with great control of their body weight, and yet it's a rugged defensive ball game. As you'll notice, it's very difficult to get a good open shot without a hand in the face in good defensive position. It can become a pretty rugged game, too. You will notice there will be a lot of physical contact in the NBA because I think a lot of people overlook the fact that these men are ranging anywhere from near 6 foot to 7'1" or 7'2", and well over 200 pounds. And when you have men with the speed and finesse that these men do have, you're bound to have a lot of spills and tumbles that we would take with the good defense and aggressive play of these big men. A lot of floor burns are picked up through one of our pressure-packed 80-game seasons. But along with the rough and tumble contact of this game, there's also tremendous finesse, with great passing of men going at full speed, as you see with this Philadelphia ball club. You have two of the better and more experienced guards in the league, in Hal Greer and Larry Costello, making a beautiful exchange of the ball on a fast break. Hal Greer has to be one of the great guards in the league, one of the most underrated. Great speed, a fine passer, tremendous driver, and a great outside jump shooter, really one of the fine NBA guards. One of the fine rookies in the league this year was Lucius Jackson, a big 6'10" performer who did a fine job on the boards, in defense, and also in scoring. The Detroit Ball Club was very fortunate and able to pick up Terry Dischinger during the past off-season. Terry is one of the few men that has played the backcourt at his height at 6'7". Coach Dave DeBuscher is also a fine basketball player that doubles in brass as a pitcher in the White Sox baseball system during the off-season. Another big corner man was Ray Scott, a ball player that we had tremendous trouble with all season. The New York Knickerbockers came up with 3 fine rookies, led by the Rookie of the Year, Willis Reed. He's a fine outside jump shooter and a great second effort man on the follow-up on rebounding. Another ball player was Butch Comives, a little guard from Bowling Green. He's a fine outside jump shooter and a left-hander. The third fine rookie was Jim Bad News Barnes, a 6'8", 240-pound corner man that will really be a fine ball player of the future. He muscles his way to the basket. Richie Guerin, the playing coach of the St. Louis Hawks, is an old pro that still has a two-hand outside set shot, but a fine all-around pro. One of the ball players in this league that has hurt the Lakers as badly as anybody that I know, particularly in the backcourt, is Lenny Wilkins, shown here on a drive. Another ball player that hurt us a lot, particularly under the boards, was Big Bill Bridges, a 6'8" corner man from the University of Kansas. And, of course, their great All-Pro. For 10 years, the All-Pro of the league, Bobby Pettit, who has retired and will be sorely missed by everybody in the league. This is one of the real coming clubs in the league, the Baltimore Bullets, anchored by their great center, Walt Bellamy, who I feel can do as many things, an all-around center play as anybody in the league. He rebounds well, he drives well, plays real fine defense. They also have Bailey Howe, a fine outside shooter and a great offensive rebounder. Also Don Ohl, a ball player that had a tremendous playoff series against the Lakers. And finally, their second-year man from the University of Idaho, Gus Johnson, got about 6'7" and a real fine, strong jumper. Certainly the Cincinnati Royals present another 1-2 punch that is nearly equal to that of the Lakers from every standpoint, and Oscar Robertson and Jerry Lucas. Oscar Robertson at 6'5", dribbling the basketball here. He does everything and everything well. He's considered by everybody in basketball as the one really complete ball player. Tremendous dribbler and passer, a fine outside jump shooter. Has led the league in assists nearly every year since he came into the league. And certainly will go down as one of the truly great guards in basketball history. His cohort now is the great Jerry Lucas from the Ohio State National Championship teams at 6'7.5". Has one of the finest and the most delicate touches for a shooter and a man tapping or tipping around the boards as anybody that I've seen. Great timing on rebounding. Great timing on defense, which makes him a very, very valuable man to this ball club. And when you put Lucas and Robertson together, it makes a tremendous offensive punch to stop. Of course, the main nemesis since we've come to Los Angeles for the Los Angeles Lakers has been the Boston Celtics, the perennial world champions of basketball, and their tremendous center, Bill Russell. To me, Bill Russell is the most dominating individual that's ever played the game of basketball. Followed his great success at the University of San Francisco with these great Boston teams during the past 8 or 9 years. He does everything that's necessary for a fine basketball player. He hooks, he jumps, he shoots, he defends, he rebounds, and gets the ball out. And beyond all that, he's a tremendous team ball player. Tommy Heinsohn, the old pro of the Boston Celtics, still is always a tough man to stop because he is an unorthodox shooter and he's not afraid to shoot. Probably the greatest shooter on the ball club is Sam Jones, along with Johnny Havlicek, who has been called the best six-man in basketball, can hurt you at either a guard or a corner position. K.C. Jones might be the unsung hero of the Boston Celtics' success over the past 3 or 4 years because he directs the ball club offensively and its fast break, and he certainly directs the ball club with its defense and its full court press. You'll see him here upset the Laker ball club by overplaying West to take away the pass outlet, create a mistake, and that's the success of the Boston press. The keynote, I think, of success in basketball on any level has got to be teamwork. Many people feel that teams in the NBA do not have plays or patterns, but actually the Lakers have some 27 patterns with many options from each, as do most other clubs in the league, with a series of picks and screens, maneuvers to help each other free themselves from the defensive man that's covering them. There's different terminologies used between what is a block or a screen. It's impairing the path of the defensive man by your offensive teammate and trying to set up an opening for a quick jump shot or a drive. You see a series of several instances where teammates are helping teammates to get off good open shots, as they need to do against the defenses played in this league. Rebounding is an art, and it involves more than just jumping up in the air. Watch how Leroy Ellis and Rudy LaRusso block out on this rebound attempt. See how their arms are spread as they make contact with their men, then turn toward the basket, which enables Jerry West to get the ball. Position that they have between their man and the basket when a shot is taken by a teammate is so important. It's good, sound basketball. That's some of the fine points of NBA basketball as it's played at the sports arena by the world's finest players. Believe me, every member of the Laker family, the players, the coach, our general manager, and the owner, Mr. Robert Short, we all want that NBA championship as a fitting reward to some of the finest fans in the NBA, and we're going after it this coming season. Laker management has designated every Wednesday night as Ladies' Night, and every game as Kids' Night for youngsters 16 and under, with special prices for those groups. All the Lakers hope to see you at the sports arena.